Officially, hello everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion on the topic of developing a sustainability mindset for AI. I'm Christina. I'm an independent researcher, currently a visiting researcher here at CeADAR Islands. I'm thrilled to have you all join us for this important conversation. And in the chat, you will see, and on your screens, of course, you will see my colleague Salir Razadigani, who is the AI Technical Program Manager here at CeADAR, and Yilin Li, who is the coordinator of the Lighthouse Projects Program. We are very excited to kick off this discussion with an amazing lineup of experts in the field of sustainable AI. You also see them on the screen. Unfortunately, one of them will not be able to join them, Yasmin Hamdar. She had an emergency event that prevented her to join us today, but we hope that she'll be able to attend us as a panelist in the future session, and I will take the liberty to introduce her in a little bit. But before we dive in, I encourage you to stay again until the end of the webinar when we are going to have a Q&A session. And during this time, you have the opportunity to ask your questions and open up your mics. You're more than welcome to write your questions, of course, in the chats throughout the session, or send them through the pre-course questionnaire that you have received yesterday with the webinar reminder. We will collect your questions and ask them on your behalf. And just a quick note, again, for those who joined us a bit later, this event is being recorded. We will share this recording with you along with some supplementary materials as a follow-up. But please keep in mind that any questions or comments that you submit will become part of the public recording. I would also like to mention that this panel is first in the series of discussions on sustainable AI that we plan to host. There will be more to come, including sessions that are focused on large language models, one of which is lined up for the mid-October. If this topic interests you, I invite you to subscribe to our Substack, LinkedIn, and YouTube channel. My colleagues will post the links to these platforms in the chat in a second, so feel free to follow along. I will ask my colleague Yilin to change the slide, please. And in the meanwhile, feel free to also share in the chat your proposals for webinar topics that you wish to see in the future in terms of sustainable AI and large language models, and we'll make sure to take them into consideration when planning for our future online panels. These panels and discussions are part of CeADAR's Lighthouse Projects program. And for those of us that are meeting us for the first time today, CeADAR is Ireland's National Centre for Applied Artificial Intelligence. We're non-for-profit, and our mission is to support businesses in understanding, adopting, and leveraging AI's benefits in this rapidly changing world of AI innovation that we are all finding ourselves nowadays. We work with startups, SMEs, and organizations of any scale, really. And our goal is to help you identify, design, and develop AI strategies, prototypes, and solutions with the overall goal to make sure that you remain competitive in the global marketplace. We are very open to collaborations, so if anything that you hear today strikes a chord with you and resonates, feel free to get in touch with us by replying to the follow-up email that you will receive after this event, and we can find a way to include you in our activities somehow. Yilin, if you can change the slide, please. All of these CeADAR values that I shared with you are reflected in our Lighthouse Projects program. The aim of this program is to guide industries to harness the power of AI through courses, personalized coaching, and solution development. We are focusing on the latest and most impactful AI technologies, and we want to guide industries that are not specifically native to AI per se. We are aiming to revolutionize sectors such as manufacturing, energy, and healthcare. And our goal here is to educate and raise awareness of emerging AI technologies and support our partners in achieving competitive advantage. And what we say here in number 5, just basically explore the art of the possible with AI. If you can change the slides, Yilin, please. So this season, in the Lighthouse Projects program, one of our focus areas is sustainable AI, which is the topic of why we are here today as well. I suppose all of you here are aware that AI's deployment results in significant energy and resource costs, which contribute to a negative environmental impact overall. So starting from the very beginning, the impact of data centers to water and energy consumption, prioritizing sustainability in the design phases of AI, it is all critical in terms of minimizing the overall impact that AI has on the environmental degradation that we face today. So while many solutions have been introduced, such as developing more energy efficient algorithms, transitioning data centers to renewable energy sources, and basically optimizing AI infrastructure to support a green transition, those actions alone are really not enough, as the successful integration of all of this requires a sustainability mindset within the industry, which is a beast of its own. Um, Organizations often struggle to balance the desire for rapid AI advancement with the slower, more deliberate process of integrating sustainable practices. Um, Also moving towards an energy efficient algorithms and infrastructures can be technically complex and costly, which almost always demands specialized knowledge that many teams currently lack, which is the possible skills gaps that we're referring here in the slides. Um, and developing a sustainability mindset is a difficult thing to achieve in the current backdrop, where the pressure to innovate rapidly and the gain from this often takes precedence over the long-term sustainability, making it difficult balance. So we are deeply intrigued. Yilin, can you please change the slides? Thank you. We're very interested and we are very intrigued to see um, how we can shift towards the sustainability mindset in AI that is becoming ever more crucial, which is why we brought today a wonderful panels of experts to share their insights and experiences. Um, I will now ask our panelists, maybe starting with Vera, to briefly introduce themselves and the work that they do. And let's kick this panel off. Vera, please.
All right, thank you very much, Tina. Thanks for having me here. It's wonderful to join everyone. I'm based in Singapore right now, and it's the evening for me, right? I think our colleagues are from all over the world. I'm the CEO of Sustainable Living Lab, it's a sustainability consultancy, and I have several appointments dealing with climate, sustainability, also related to AI as well. And basically, I came from an engineering background and intellectual property background. But today, with my team, we look at a number of different dimensions of sustainability, everything from low carbon innovation to software development and digital upskilling. So particularly in relation to AI, maybe just speak to that. We work with our partners to train about 4 million people a year, specifically on AI skilling since about 3 years ago, since the COVID pandemic. And in terms of sustainability software development, we have developed a couple of products that use AI for doing rice sort of grading and other matters related to climate adaptation and planning and so on. So I can maybe share a bit more about that later on, but back to you, Christina.
Thank you. For sure, we would like to hear more about the amazing work that you do. And AI courses is something that we are also very interested in. So we will be happy to hear about more about what you do in terms of AI education. Maybe Mohammed can also share a few words about himself and the work that he currently does.
Thanks, Christina. So hi, everyone. Mohammed Ahmed is my name. I'm based in Sweden and originally from Sudan. I come from kind of interesting background that joins artificial intelligence with sustainable energy systems with development economics. So I have master's degree in each one of these three areas, and I come from a bachelor degree in electrical engineering. So this topic is quite interesting to me, and throughout the last 10 years or more than 10 years, I have been working in manufacturing and energy industry, basically trying to use data in order to lead to more sustainable world, in the sense that I focus on optimization of companies' internal processes, but also customers' experience as well. So I could also share later about some of the products that I have worked on. Really looking forward to this discussion, and really happy to be here with you guys.
For sure, Mohammed. Thank you for accepting this invitation, and we look forward to hearing, especially for manufacturing, what sort of solutions that you have helped develop, because this is one of the sectors that are most in need of optimizing their processes and their energy efficiency. Fred, maybe you can also share something about yourself and the work that you currently do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great to meet you all. And I'm Fred. I live in Denmark and based out of Copenhagen. I have a background in supply chain and finance from my studies, and have then been working in several startups in the AI space. But also for the last 5 years, I've been at Microsoft, specifically focusing on data and AI, which is like the one solution area within Microsoft. Here I've been focusing to begin with a lot on like kind of cognitive services and API based AI, then a lot around the data platforms. And over the last 1.5 years, I've been focusing more dedicated to sustainability. So it has been everything from the data challenge of gathering the data, of calculating it, using it for compliance, but also definitely using it for other use cases. And AI is an interesting kind of middle point between my interest in data and my foundation in data, you can say the pressure I feel every day around sustainability, and AI is kind of one of the tools that I see that can get us there. But it also needs to be used right, and that's what I think the sustainability mindset is for me. So this balanced approach to it. So then I'm curious to talk much more about that, and also bring in some of the clients conversation that I have been working with.
Amazing. Thank you, Fred, so much. You actually started answering one of our questions, what sustainability mindset is for you. But before we give the word to that, I just want to take a quick seconds to introduce Yasmin, who in the last minute had an emergency and had to drop out. But she will become part of the follow-up discussion. Hopefully, she will also join us for future panels. So Yasmin Hamdari is an AI specialist in UNDP, and her work is dedicated to leveraging AI for sustainable development. So she is a computer scientist, originally from Beirut, I believe, but also she served as a technical manager for the Data Pop Alliance, which is a think tank established by Harvard and MIT, where she led various AI-driven initiatives. So you basically see why we want to have her for this and future discussions. She's an amazing contribution to the sustainable AI movement, and we really hope that we are able to see her in future panels. Maybe before the discussion as well, we can give the word to the other moderator, Ali Reza, to introduce himself briefly and maybe kick off this discussion. Ali Reza, would you mind sharing a few words about yourselves and the work that you do here at CeADAR?
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks, Tina, for the time and opportunity you are giving me. Hello everybody. This is Ali Reza. That's more than 10 years I have been in the high-tech industry, working in different companies, startups, at different roles, corporate like Intel for 3.5 years, etc. And now recently, that's more than 2 years, I'm working at CeADAR, Center for AI in Ireland. as the AI Technical Program Manager and leading the Lighthouse Projects program, which is the program to help companies and industries and everybody who is interested in understanding how they can know about AI and how they can bring it into to their businesses. Mostly we support Irish businesses, but we have programs like this that could be worldwide, and everybody can attend and support us on the activity we are doing and hopefully learn from what we are doing. So I want to say thank you to the panelists. They accepted our invitation to join us. I don't want to waste any more time. I want just to jump into the question. We have a lot of interesting questions, as you can see. We did a good range of different experts from big organization, corporates, from cultural things, from academia, different areas in the world. We have a very good perspective today to discuss the AI. So let me jump to the first question that I want to ask the panelists. I want to start with Fred. He is from one of the big corporates. Particularly, they are doing a lot in terms of centers, AI centers, cloud centers, and so on and so forth. That's one of the challenge for the sustainability of AI. So what is that sustainability mindset at all? And, can you tell us a little bit, what does it mean?
Yeah, good, Elisa. Thank you. And also just like a disclaimer, I'm actually in a transition role, so I'm moving from Microsoft to another organization. So in that transition at the moment, but still I'm happy to talk kind of based on my past 5 years there. And that is true, that it's definitely something that Microsoft has felt very much. So if you look at our Microsoft's sustainability report, you can see that basically it's a construction company at the moment. They are constructing a lot of data centers. I think I heard around 2 or something a week, so 1 every 3rd day. It's very significant in the investment that they're doing into that, and that's the embodiment of what we are doing with AI, right? So that's the real concrete and steel and hardware that is needed to be installed, but then also the continuous operations of these data centers. That is a very significant part of it, and it also I think puts light on that just because it's digital, it doesn't mean that it's not physical. So I think that's important to have in mind. But back to your question around the sustainable mindset, I think that's a more of a if we just zoom out, not even focusing on AI. I think it is about like having this balanced approach that I also alluded to in my introduction, where you go in and think about like what is actually the outcome, set the right intentions from the beginning, and then you find out which tools then best to work with. For example, AI is also a very broad term. You can say when we are having clients conversation, we start basically with understanding what is the intentions, what is it, the desires that they are wanting to, and then which use cases could that end up in from a technology standpoint, because a lot of organizations, they want to do a lot with AI, but they don't really know where to begin. And a lot of it that is AI, but some of it might be Gen AI, other might be more traditional AI. Some is just basically better insights through more traditional analytics tools and through a better consolidation of data and so on. So there's a lot of things that goes even before. So I think the first question to ask yourself is that what is actually your intention and what is the best tool to get you there? Because even though there's a lot of talk about AI and so on, I think it all comes down to the business justification. So AI is polluting. I think that's what the kind of like what we see and what we hear and so on, also with the data centers and so on, that is needed to train them and so on. But we need to think about what is the business justification of applying it. And for some of the use cases, it is just that AI can solve something much faster, much better than traditional methods will do. So that's one part of the equation. Then on the other side of the equation is about how you then leverage the AI. And there's a lot of techniques that we will probably get into later on about not just like finding more energy efficient and better way of also leveraging the tool itself. So I think starting with business justification is the kind of the main idea of the mindset, and then also of using the right techniques to get you to that desired outcome. That would be my like summarization.
Yeah, that's very interesting aspect you covered actually. So another, yeah, so I was reading in an article a couple of days ago that Microsoft has started renovating the Three Island nuclear power plant in United States because of the huge energy. They are going to invest hugely at that power plant to
Yeah.
actually use the energy. So everybody's hungry of the products, AI products nowadays, and they want to make much more money out of the products. At the same time, we are facing with the climate change and the problem. People's life are in danger. So it's interesting to understand what is the sustainability mindset. Let's shift a little bit to the topic to Veer, and I want to ask you, Veer, the next question, the same question, and I want to know in terms of cultural and regional. So what we talked to Fred, actually, it was in Europe. So how about your side? I mean, how cultural things and regional things affect the sustainability mindset?
Business is quite globalized these days, right? So a lot of the same thinking is pervasive as well. But normally business over here think in terms of what is the TC or total cost of ownership ultimately, right? So if let's say you want to deploy an AI solution or anything for that matter, right? What's total cost of ownership over here? Do you need the most powerful processors, powerful models, or can you make do with something less powerful because ultimately the overall cost of ownership in the energy use, in the equipment and so on becomes ultimately cheaper, given what you want to do. Right? So having the business case, very important, like what Fred said, and then of course looking at the total cost of ownership over its lifetime. I think that's how decisions are always made on a cost basis, right? But I think I also want to maybe add, right, that we talk about sustainability mindset in this context, right? It's not a concept that's very removed from engineering, right? In engineering, we always talk about the idea of trying to reduce waste, ultimately, right? So over here, reducing waste of anything for that matter, I think is foundational. And anyone involved in any kind of development work, I will consider them an engineer, and I will say, how are you reducing waste, right? Because waste is useless. Right? You wouldn't want to have waste. Waste in processing, waste in energy, waste in e-waste, and so on. So I think just that sort of mentality towards reducing waste will also be extremely helpful. And maybe a third thing we'll think about is in terms of what is the carbon intensity of your operations, right? So let's say one thing I often find is that reducing the energy use of a particular device actually ends up what actually ends up, the total energy use actually goes up because people end up expanding their services because the energy use per unit actually goes down and then you end up expanding it. So your overall energy consumption actually goes up. Right? It's a very counterintuitive sort of situation that you often find in data centers, particularly. I think we have to sort of overcome this greed. Foundational all this thing ultimately is that there's a lot of greed that's ultimately behind this sort of activity. And I know companies try to generate or profit maximize. I think it comes down to politics to sort of internalize the negative externalities of doing business. And so, in that way, in Asia, we are very, closely monitor the policy development in Europe. Because I think a lot of policy developments sort of shaping how companies behave actually is very useful to learn how Europe does it. And that's sort of things we study very closely and very often.
Very interesting. I really love your perspective on engineering aspect, how to minimize the waste and how to help. Yeah, that's a good time at the moment to connect it to the innovation. And I want to ask the next question from Mohammed. And so nowadays, like we actually mentioned, a lot of, and actually Fred mentioned, a lot of companies are interested, business side, they're interested in terms of developing new products with a lot of revenue and income for them. Because of that, they are in the queue with NVDA to receive a lot of hardware to train, blah, 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 etc. So it seems like there's a kind of challenge between innovation and sustainability. So to which one we should sacrifice? Do we need to sacrifice something at all, or that's the matter of, please tell me a little bit about your insight into balancing between the cutting edge AI development and sustainability.
Absolutely. I think this is quite interesting question because it shows kind of a perception that's kind of it's visible whenever you talk about sustainability and we talk about AI. People feel that, or technological development in general, people feel that these are two contradicting kind of waves, right? So you have to kind of strike the balance between the need for sustainability and basically advancing our technologies or AI development. I would like just to show a bit of a controversial opinion here, which is that I feel that the relationship between technological advancement and need for sustainability is a bit more complex than just a contradicting kind of relationship, because actually as part of the core work that I do in my company is basically is to work on looking for innovative ways in order to achieve more sustainability. Actually, that's the mission of our company right now. The core of our strategy is to basically help our customers be more sustainable through innovation and technology. So basically, our main focus is to try to utilize AI itself in order to achieve more sustainable world in that sense. So this is a bit of a perspective about my thinking about the question itself, but also just going with the direction of the question. So of course we know that, I mean, in big parts, okay, or like let's say that in most of the parts of AI development, people usually work against going towards sustainability. So basically energy consumption, and things like this. So, and in this regard, companies like Siemens Energy put also as part of their strategy, as I said, is to try to utilize AI to bring more sustainable world, but also to be mindful about the implications of utilizing AI and technological development in that regard. So here there is a lot of house rules, let's say, and best practices that are put as guidelines to development teams when it comes to developing AI products, but also in general digital products. Some of the examples, for example, is being kind of obliged to create an environmental impact analysis for each kind of new product that you develop in order to see the fingerprint of this product and what's the implication of this product, when it comes to the environment sustainability and things like this. But also thinking about developing our products in the most efficient ways, regardless of the energy consumption. Also, you need to try to implement your products using best practices when it comes to, for example, software development practices, as Vera said in the introduction, or when it comes to the infrastructure and the tools that you use. For example, I can also mention later about going fully cloud, for example, which is a very good thing for big companies, because cloud provides you with best practices for reducing energy consumptions and also sharing resources with others and cost schemes and things like this. So there is a list of kind of guidelines and best practices that big companies like our company, let's say, it puts as I would say not like obligatory. I think some of them are obligatory, but some of them are kind of best practices for teams to use while they are developing their solutions. Yeah.
That's very interesting point of view. Yeah, definitely. Particularly, you can see nowadays the energy sector, they are really interested in kind of bringing innovation toward sustainability. That's really interesting to see how they can implement it. And yeah, that's really interesting and challenging. I want to continue the same part with Fred, please, to let us know about the culture of the corporates from the time you have been in Microsoft, like I said. So what is their culture in terms of, how they can balance, or maybe, like Mohammed said, in different perspective, how you can consider sustainability and innovation together?
Yeah, I just thought also, I think that's really good, and I would get back to the culture thing, but I think also just echoing Mohammed, I think it's very, very true, right? There's this thing about like we are not in a sustainable time of the human species at the moment. We might have been for many, many years ago if we go 1,000 years back, and then of course it's part of the innovation and part of the evolution that we kind of got out of that. But then the question is, should we go back or should we go forward? And I think there's only one way, and that is to go forward. And we need a lot of innovation to make that happen. And that's why that I would see that it goes much more hand in hand. But that being said, there's of course a little bit that kind of like moonshot period or moon landing kind of time now, where when we first went to the moon, right? That was the only goal, and we put everything into it that was needed to get there. And it's a little bit the same with AI at the moment, that there's put a lot of resources in, and maybe also into a product where it's not needed really. And I see that a lot, that a lot of companies where we do co-innovation together with, that they want to have some kind of chatbot, or they want to have some kind of AI feature towards their customer, and because of kind of where we are at the moment, they don't think so much about doing optimization, because they are much more in getting this off the ground, trying it out, and so on, and then the optimization will happen later. So therefore, using the big models where it might not be needed, right, and these kind of things. So that's part of the time that we are in now, and I think that will normalize. Eventually, you would see that companies will start to be much smarter about what is the level of like how large do the algorithms have to be for solving that specific issue and so on. So back to the business justification, and there may be a concept that we are talking a lot with our that I think is very important to talk with clients about, especially as a cloud provider, is the shared responsibility. And I think that's both Vera and Mohammed have also talked about that. But there's a shared responsibility, and the first part of the responsibility lies on the cloud provider. And Microsoft takes like one approach to their shared responsibility. You mentioned earlier already about the nuclear plants. There's a lot of investment into how to try to decarbonize steel, decarbonize concrete, build more efficient data centers, reuse water. For example, here in Denmark, the data centers that has been built is sending the heated water back into the district heating system, so in that way it can heat up houses. And there's all these things, and that's in the end of the day, it's all about the engineering discipline of reducing waste, right? So making sure that wherever there's energy spent, that the full benefit of that energy is coming out of it. And that's what we can do with existing technologies, but we need to really like get to the right point, and also, you know, like we can build a lot of solar panels and a lot of wind turbines and so on, but to get really to the point we still need a lot of innovation in new ways of getting energy, new ways of using energy, new hardware that is more efficient, and so on. So that's still a large innovation challenge, where innovation and sustainability goes hand in hand. Then on the other side of the equation in the shared responsibility is on the side of the customers. Just because the energy is through a power purchase agreement and so on, it's green energy, it doesn't mean that you can just use as much of it as you want. So on that part of the equation for the customer, there's a large both cultural skills, processes, mindset, and so on, things that will have to change. So there's a change management change management exercise in that, because even though the cloud provider is fully green and so on, or at least tries to be it, there will always be that energy could have been used for something different. So it's very important to have the right culture and the right techniques to do that. Some of the things that I at Microsoft worked a lot with was the Green Software Foundation, that sets out and also talks about the energy intensity, so that basically looking at how much output do you get for the energy that you put in. So how many users is leveraging, how many answers are you giving, or how many of a certain kind of result that you're looking for do you get with an energy? How can you then start to have a formula so you can start to actually being able to reduce it when you start to operationalize it, and that's part of it. But I think on the culture side, a lot of people want to make a difference, but I think also it's a very interdisciplinary area here where you basically need so many different understandings and backgrounds and so on to come together in order to make the impact that is required in this field. And I think that's the large challenge. It's really a challenge of collaboration, of creating that culture around having all these kind of interests and priorities working in parallel. So it's I don't really know like one silver bullet for it, but I think education, what you guys are doing, having open discussions around it, setting KPIs, having the exec leaders prioritizing this, and where does the push then come from to do that? I think a lot of it is also back to the regulatory system, as Vera you were also into, because we need more transparency, and transparency will drive performance, and then performance will start to drive a more strategic approach to this in companies, even though they are for profit. But that is required, is my opinion.
That's a very interesting point of view and a statement you made. That actually, yes, definitely, education is very important part. Like you said, there are a lot of parties who are interested in participating in this, but we need to have, proper education to let people how they can collaborate. And that was interesting point of view also. You mentioned about the energy. Even it is a green energy, it's not like you can use whatever you want, because we know from thermodynamic that energy converts to other form, and the environmental aspect also are involved, and so on and so forth. I want to continue the same path to go to the another question, perhaps, to ask, about how to embed this mindset. Okay, we discussed a lot about the mindset, but how in practice we want to bring that mindset into this. So I want to ask from Vera, based on the experience he has in the living lab, the sustainable living lab. So what are the practical steps and actions you think we should consider to implement that mindset?
So I would say that I'm not sure we do it the best way possible, right? But I can tell you what we do, right? So in my team, the developers actually are starting out of Indonesia, right? The development team starts in Indonesia, and the rest of my team is scattered in different parts of Asia, right? And developers being developers, they come in not having a understand what sustainability is, and oftentimes the first step actually is educating them for what that means in the organization, because they're joining an organization with sustainability in the name of it, so they should obviously know or learn what the organization is trying to do in this respect. And then the next step basically becomes how they integrate it as part of their development process, right? So basically, they do it in a few ways, right? Firstly is that projects they take on, the first question that they typically ask is that, is this project ultimately adding to a more sustainable world or less sustainable world? So we basically evaluate projects that we take on. We don't take on every project as a result of that assessment. Right? Now, when we take on a project, let's say, and we took on a project recently around developing some software to grade rice using, machine learning techniques and so on. Then the thing becomes, how do we be very efficient in the algorithm writing and so on? So initially, from a prototyping standpoint, we'll want to just get something that works, a bit like what Fred said, right? We're in the prototyping stage, we'll do anything to make sure it works. And then we will optimize it to reduce the amount of compute we're using, the amount of resources that we are using in the context of that device. And because a lot of our projects are actually meant to be deployed in developing countries, in less resource poor regions, or in places where there is unstable power, and so on, we actually have to make it very light in that sense, right? We have to make the models light, we have to make the devices light, and just by necessity, we have to basically optimize and maybe even use technologies that are not the latest and greatest and the most current. And what it ultimately does is that technologies that are not current, unfortunately, they are very optimized as well, because they will have gone through several of the upgrade cycles. People would have cleaned up all the bugs, so it tends to be more stable as a release as well. So that's sort of how we work in our development process. Are there more things that we could do? Probably. One of the things that we're looking into is that the sustainability space, there is now interest at what they call a product level sustainability assessment. So for specific products, whether be they software or hardware products, looking at a product level sustainability and being able to determine that, right? So part of that essentially involves a life cycle analysis from product development to deployment of a particular product, whether it's a software or hardware product. So that for us will be the next stage of evolution, when we can get to a point where we're able to, along with our product, deliver a product level sustainability report. To us, that will represent our next stage, how we integrate these considerations into our product development.
That's very interesting point of view. I can see kind of an analogy here with the data itself. I mean, the data privacy, I mean, the GDPR, when you talk, particularly in Europe, we have it. So when you are talking about the GDPR, it is the best practice is to start it from scratch. I mean, if the engineer is going to play with the data, that engineer is the responsible person to take care of the data. It's not like someone is assessing that. I'm just an engineer, I want to develop. It seems like that's the same and similar situation here with sustainability. So people, especially at any level, they should care about the sustainability. Very interesting. So let's continue the same question with Mohammed, please. To let us know in energy sector in Siemens, how Siemens ensure sustainability is considered from the very first step. What actional steps you are doing toward that?
Okay, yeah, thanks. Again, a very intriguing question. And I think, as I mentioned before, I think in order to have a sustainability mindset in a company, it kind of comes from like a top and a bottom, top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So the bottom-up approach is that the individuals of the company themselves are supposed to be, educated about what is sustainability aspects whenever they're doing their day-to-day work. But let's start from the top down approach. I think it starts from the company's mission itself. And I say our company, I'm really proud to work in a company that their sole mission is actually to help customers become more sustainable or go towards a more sustainable world through innovation and technology. And through this, I think the company basically put as its beacon to focus on one of the most important things that affect our world right now when it comes to sustainability. For example, the decarbonization movement in the world right now. But before that, the huge demand for energy for the industry in general. And in order to achieve this, our companies try to, let's say that, emit the sustainability mindset through the people, processes, and technologies. So when it comes to the people, that's what I mentioned before, is that educating people about the sustainability mindset and how can they go about their day-to-day work, having sustainability mindset in mind. And for this, there is a lot of training courses in our learning platform in Siemens Energy, and some of them are actually mandatory that you're supposed to go through as an employee, and many are then optional for whoever is going to be interested to attend them. When it comes to the processes, our company also keeps quite up to date with let's say that advancement of regulations when it comes to sustainability. The latest thing that I could mention is the EU AI Act, the European Union's AI Act. So it comes with a multiple obligatory list of to-do list, I would say, for companies that are working on AI development, like this environmental impact and assessment, but also explainable AI. And these are things that we have already embedded in our processes. So whenever we work on AI development, these are some of the routes that we're supposed to go towards. And when it comes to technologies, I think I said before that basically going cloud and also looking for best practices of technology use in a way that reduces the fingerprint and increases the environmental sustainability of the company.
Very interesting. Very interesting. That's really good. So yes, so we are in a good shape now. I think we have discussed a lot of interesting aspects of sustainability by here, but people may start thinking, okay, so it looks like companies, organization, academia, etc., they are taking care of the sustainability. But can you show us some real example of actions in place? So I want to ask Fred the next question, please, to help us, if he could help us understanding, seeing some of the examples of the sustainability in practice in organization, in corporates, in any aspect.
Yeah, I'm happy to try. So I think like at Microsoft, it has been a long journey, right? It has been a journey where it started out that it was put more on you can say the internal radar. I think it's back in 2008 when it started to be deployed as a tax. So a carbon fee across the organization, and I think that made a lot of change from it being more of a centralized kind of isolated pursuit to actually making it more part of everyone's day to day. The fee, I would say, is more of a thing for maybe like top management and P&L owners. But I think it's part of starting to decentralize and distribute out the responsibility across the organization. It means that you as a P&L owner will actually end up taking this into consideration when you plan larger things, right, and set the strategy from your P&L area. The money is then channeled back to a centralized fund, so that's how it works, and then in that centralized fund is then used for the most optimal kind of cross-company projects. And that's, you can say, in a way where you distribute out the kind of the incentive, but you also centralize the knowledge and the initiatives being driven. Of course, there's also something that lives outside and distributed out. So I worked at the Danish organization. We also did a lot locally, but still we are of course relying on large global aspects. So I think actually in that way that has worked out as a strategy. What this team is doing is finding out everything from how they can invest in the right technologies to back to that innovation that I talked about is needed, but also on large expanding the grid and the green energy mix in the grid, and setting out new capacity and so on, and also what I mentioned earlier with the reusing the water, the heated water for district heating is also part of that. So all these, this kind of centralized fund can then go in and do these things where you would say that in looking at it in isolation, connecting the wastewater to the Danish district heating is there's not a good business case in it. So it's basically you can say it's not that you can sell the heat of water and in that way earning money as it is, unfortunately. And I think that's part of the economy building up, right? As we also talked about these externalities and pricing them in. It will probably change, and that's why having a centralized fund where you can start looking more long term and building up the capabilities to do these things is useful. Locally, how we did it was that I was lead for our Center of Excellence. So basically, what we were doing is that how can we make sustainability part of everyone's job? And again, as we talked about, instead of seeing it as a constraint kind of put on at the end, so kind of have you checkmark the GDPR thing, down to how can you think it into the process, and that's a lot what we were trying to do in the Center of Excellence. So to make it relevant for each of the employees in our Danish organization, to whatever their task is. So that's a lot about upskilling and about having conversation and so on. But I think mostly what I have been involved in has been on the client side. So to go out and talk about what is the art of the possible when you talk about AI and sustainability. And that has ranged from many different use cases, right? It has ranged from thinking into predictive maintenance for wind turbines, for detecting sick animals and cattle in farms, leveraging also large databases on agriculture to do better watering and so on. So there's many different use cases that is spread out on, and that's, I think that's where I believe is a very interesting area, because it's about that, like how these technologies can be put into use for some of those really critical things that we are faced with. I think basically the benefits, the potential benefit surpasses far these other things, but you need to, of course, unleash that potential benefit in order for the infrastructural and the embodied carbon and all these challenges to be worth it. Yeah.
Very interesting to see. It is in place, I would say, in different levels. I mean, not only technical level, but also the central fund is very interesting aspect that you highlighted, and it shows the importance of the management and higher level decision making in implementing the sustainability, which we will come back to it for the next question. But for now, I want to ask Vera also to help us a little
Maybe,
bit.
sorry to interrupt you, but Mohammed is raising his hand. Maybe he wants to add something to
Yeah,
this part.
sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. Yeah, exactly. I think I was triggered by some of the things that Fred said, so I felt like sharing an interesting initiative or project as well that our company worked on in this regard. So just to give to set the stage for this, I mean, I think big part of the cost of developing AI solutions comes from the data itself and the storage of the data. And our company being like a big original equipment manufacturer company, but at the same time an energy company, we have huge tons of IoT data that comes from the fleet of equipment that we sell to our customers, and we are responsible for monitoring this equipment. So basically, I'm talking about terabytes of data. So one of the initiatives that was kicked in our company in the last couple of years is basically having proper data governance office, and the main idea here was that, I mean, data governance is like a big area, right? So it starts from basically making sure that access to the data is given to the right people, and then making sure that we can leverage the data in the right way in order to achieve the company's business goals. And as part of the data governance, I would say paradigm comes concepts of data domains and data domain managers and data catalogs. So the main idea here is that for each domain in the company, each data that relates to that domain is supposed to be kind of owned by a specific organization. It's usually a team of like a data domain owner and then stewards. And then whoever needs access to this data is supposed to reach out to the data domain managers or their team. The big impact of this is that in a huge company that has terabytes of data and has, I think now around 100,000 employees, there is huge of like replications of data sets inside the company itself. So you could find the same data set multiplied, like replicated maybe 10 times, for example, for different parts of the organization. And this is basically waste, coming back to what Vera said before about sustainability and waste, the economic aspects of sustainability. So as part of this initiative, we have like a data catalog, a central data catalog, which is a place where everybody would like to check a specific data set. They go to the data catalog, and from there they see, for example, who's the owner of this data set, and then basically, get access to the data and then uses the data in that regard. And this reduced a lot of cost due to this previously siloed approach of hosting data, and it encouraged the reusability of data sets. So this is an interesting initiative that I just wanted to mention here.
Oh, sure. That was a very interesting aspect. Thanks for covering that. Yeah, data to AI pipeline is one of the challenging aspects in sustainability that rarely actually startups, I would say, maybe in the bigger scale organization, etc., they are aware of, but mostly in the lower scale, that's the problem. Oh, that's great. I can bet you we can continue this discussion for hours and hours and hours because we have very knowledgeable panelists in this technical discussion panel. Thanks for being with us, and also the topic is really interesting, and there are a lot of aspects to cover. But to ensure we can cover a couple of other aspects of the discussion, I want to switch to the role of the leadership in promoting the sustainability aspect. I want to ask Vera to help us. What do you think about that? And do you think how it is important?
So I think definitely this cannot be understated. So as part of our work, we basically meet with several country governments, and we've been doing so since about 2018, when a bunch of countries were trying to develop the national AI policies, right? And this is a very interesting sort of space, right? Because most countries start developing national AI policies when their peer countries start developing them as well. So oftentimes they're driven by competition, right, to develop it. And oftentimes the policymakers or the policy decision makers are not exactly fully aware, right, about the complexities around the topic, much less about AI, even less about sustainability and AI, right? They're not fully aware of what that actually entails. And when you have leadership that is misinformed or uninformed, then they make a lot of strange decisions, basically lead to a lot of effects down the line, right? And you see a good example of this, right? So in some countries, land that's used for agriculture basically gets energy subsidized. So if you have a particular, business that's operating on agricultural land or land in a rural setting, energy is subsidized or is free, right? So basically, and what happened in some of these countries, it started with whole crypto mining and all that stuff, right? Is that when you have such a policy and you don't understand the implication of that policy, the environment where people are trying to train AI models and build data centers and so on, you suddenly have a lot of data centers popping out in rural areas using energy for free, right? Because the policymakers are not educated to basically see the problem before it happens, right? And this is a very classic sort of issue, which brings on the point that they need to be educated about it, and it needs to come from the top. And also the other thing is about funding or financing AI and the types of AI projects that they want to fund and finance. So every country will be like, oh, I want to basically build more data center. And some who are very ambitious will say that I want to have my own chip manufacturing fabrication facility. There's a lot of indigenization sort of policies that they will try to pursue, not understanding what the AI development lifecycle looks like and what is the best position for their country to be in. Because you could say that I want to play in the space of the chips, or I could want to play in the space of the inference, right? So you can choose where you want to be in that value chain. And I think it's important for policymakers to understand that, because every country has its own specific set of benefits. Sometimes maybe because of the cost of the workforce, data labeling and tagging, all that might be the area that you want to start off with, right? In terms of developing your whole AI economy, for that matter. So I think there's a lot of nuance over here that gets missed out. Everyone wants to do what everyone else is doing. So 100% agree that it's very important to educate leadership so they can direct policy and investment in the right way, because we've already seen a lot of mistakes right now, even since 2018, manifesting today.
Yeah, that's very important. That's very important. The policymaker actually they force everything toward positive or negative, and that's very important to have that. We are talking about the mindset at this webinar, so it's very important to consider. Fred, I want to ask you to continue the same question in terms of the role of the leadership. You have already mentioned some of the examples in terms of centralizing the funds and so on and so forth. That would be great to tell us in terms of the big organization. At CeADAR, we had some sort of partnership with Accenture and how to implement to assess the sustainability of the AI model they develop and so on and so forth. So I know in the big organization, they are really interested in this topic. So what's the role of leadership in big corporation in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, and sorry, I think I sneak peeked quite some of it here before. So, but I think that shift from like making it part of everybody's responsibility and distributing it out through like a carbon tax. I think that's one way that I think it's being incentivized throughout for decision making. So I think it's basically at the end of the day part of putting it in to what people are measured on, and then that will also be guiding how people are then taking decisions. And again, it's of course it's measured on you can say P&L, which what was I talked about, but also KPIs, right? Like and again about taking it into the early innovation process, into the early engineering process, having as part of the KPIs. But that leads to the question, of course, and like, how do you then take something so large, right? It can be environmental, it can be social, it can be multifaceted. How do you take that into to everyone's life and in a simple enough way? Maybe here highlighting the Green Software Foundation as part of like you can say a leadership decision where more companies is joined in on a not-for-profit organization that tries to set some industry standards for how to work with technology in a more sustainable way, right? And that also goes for AI. So I think that's part of it. For leadership, it is about this like when it's easy in the way when it's something that is clear course, but I think the difficulty becomes in when there's where there's different conflicting needs or conflicting goals that is meeting, and I think that's where it's important to set also the priority of sustainability. So being clear in that. But yeah.
Sorry for cutting you. If I can ask you to continue a little bit on the challenges of the implementing sustainabilities, that would be interesting to know that.
Yeah, I think at least what I see in also with working with other organizations, and I also know that it's part of Microsoft. Like so of course at Microsoft, as I said, we are at the moment nearly a construction company, right? So and then the challenge is where is the trade-offs and where is the priorities? Because we at Microsoft, of course, we need to we have many goals that we need to meet at the same time in a balanced approach. So we need to make shareholder value, create shareholder value. We need to meet our customers and meet our customers' needs, and so on. And we also need to do that in a balancing way. And you can say by building all these data and so on, is that the right approach? Yeah, but we have other needs, right? So we need to find the best balance across them. And that's also what I see when I talk with customers, where when it's just about going in and doing something smarter or more efficient with AI and other technologies, it's a lot of times the decision is quite easy, right? Like the more you can cost cut and also cost sustainability or like improve sustainability at the same time, the better it is. So that I would say is kind of the ones that is the low hanging fruit if you think about it from a kind of cost versus sustainability point of view. The difficult thing becomes when they start to conflict, and there's areas where those two will be conflicting around growth, around innovation paths, and so on, and they will conflict towards sustainability. They are harder, and there I think it really requires leadership, because then you will need to start to prioritize, and I don't think there's any like golden a silver bullet for that. Something that I think is starting to materialize in the business context is that companies go from having a lot of different ambitions and being very bold on ambitions, and now we're moving into the more roadmap part of the journey. And in the roadmap, I think, for example, like Unilever could be a good example. They had a lot of grand ambitions, but then when we moved into roadmap, they needed to simplify it and need to focus on what is very key for them and where is it that they want to take those critical decisions, prioritizing sustainability higher than other of their goals, and that's then that you have to do with much fewer priorities. So I think we will see that companies start to pick out a few where it's very high importance, and then also prioritizing that more. I also see that with Lego here in Denmark, right? Really ambitious and so on, but starting to cut down on specific the things that is very crucial for them. So I think that's the leadership mission when we go into the more roadmap thing, is then finding out like where is it actually that you want to make those tough decisions as well.
Yeah, sure. Interesting. Good. So to ask the last question and then go for the Q&A section to have audience's questions, I want to ask kind of the same question from Mohammed, please, to tell us a little bit of the challenge of implementation of the sustainability mindset in your sector particularly.
Okay. So I can talk about two challenges. The first challenge is basically, let's say that you have a plan to educate the professionals in the organization in order to be aware about these aspects. How can you ensure that they actually have fathoms or have understood these things or have gone through the trainings and really have it as in their DNA from day-to-day side aspect? And that's a tough thing, because you cannot have like exams, for example, for employees in order to see how they're doing. But actually, what you can do is basically setting quality gates for products development in order to make sure that these aspects have been taken into consideration. To take an example, we have like a product development life cycle, and in this product development life cycle, we have quality gates, right? So in each phase of the product development, you have to come up with, you have to check some checklist in order to make sure that you can go to the next step. And as part of these check items, we put some let's say requirements for sustainability implementation or mindset, taking into consideration sustainability mindset as you're developing your product. As I said before, reusability of data is one of the things that I said we had an initiative for. So we actually have a checklist in our quality gates about the reusability components of the solution that you're developing. Do you actually did you use some data set that have already been there before? Did you recreate this data, or did you reuse this data from the right source? And also for the technological, or for the tools that you're using. For example, if you're using a specific machine learning model, okay, or a specific machine learning workflow in order to do something, was this model reusable? Did you reuse it from another model that had already been created before in the company, or not? Was there a possibility to reuse it and then you just recreated it? So we go through these in each one of the quality gates in order to make sure that the sustainability mindset have been taken into consideration.
Very good, interesting. These are the interesting challenges that everybody involved in the problem need to consider to hopefully bring solution toward that. Okay, like I said, if you want to continue, we can go on and go on and go on with interesting questions and topics. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, our bright and knowledgeable panelists. So to give some time to the question that audience has asked and then wrapping up the webinar, I will leave it to Tina, my colleague, and we'll be with you. Thank you very much. Tina, to you.
Thank you, Ali Reza, for the wonderful moderation and the insightful questions that you asked. We have received one question in the panel that I think we also sort of discussed it a little bit in terms of what can be done throughout the panel, but the question is by Aidan, who says that basically, just a second so I can pull out the question. Basically, he says that Meta has recently announced an estimation of the processing power that is used to train Llama 4, and they estimated that it would be like 10 times that of Llama 3. And still, we continue building centers to support the growing demand of generative AI. So how do we go about this? How do we leverage sustainability with initiatives such as this, where like we have an AI basically arms race? We did touch a little bit about implementing basically sustainable practices. We discussed a little bit about regulations that could push companies to innovate in the realm of energy efficiency rather than just model capabilities. Do you guys have anything to add in terms of how can we discuss the topic of sustainability with initiatives such as this one? And when we hear what the impact of this training of large models is.
Yeah, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, feel free to jump in.
I can start here. I just had in mind the thought about the importance here of regulatory bodies, because when it comes to like big tech companies, I mean, and this AI arms war, I think you need someone with kind of like a bigger power in order to make sure that things are moderated in the right way. So here I'm thinking a lot about the regulatory bodies, for example, like in the European Union, the EU Act, something similar to this in the level of the whole world would be really good in order to, I don't know, moderate things and put kind of obligatory regulations to these companies in order to strike balance between these companies trying to, achieve bigger market share and also, achieve higher AI capabilities, but at the same time not leading to, like a worse sustainable outcomes.
For sure, and I think we're missing Yasmin here on the panel. She would have given perfect inputs when speaking about regulatory efforts and governments, but basically such regulations, taking into account what Vera said, that leadership should be properly educated about all of this, but such regulations could push companies to innovate in the realm of energy efficiency rather than just model capabilities. And one thing, I think I saw this in Singapore actually, that governments are trying to establish clear carbon accounting practices for AI activities that basically hold companies accountable for environmental footprints. And I think that this transparency could encourage competition, not just in like model performance, but also sustainability metrics. Do you know anything about that, Vera?
So
Like,
actually, until recently in Singapore, we had a moratorium on data center building, right? Which means and by the way, Singapore has a lot of data centers because if you look at the global subsea cables, they converge through Singapore due to geographical reasons. And so we have many data centers that are located in Singapore. Around 2022, right? I think 2022, I think so about that. But we basically had a moratorium that was recently lifted, and essentially, yeah, it was lifted in 2022. Yeah, but the moratorium was put in place from 2019 onwards because the energy and water use became pretty unsustainable. Singapore is a country which imports 100% of its energy from outside the country. And for water, we are self-sufficient to about 70% or so. 30% we buy water from Malaysia, our northern neighbor, under a long agreement. So obviously we can't just use anything because it's limited in terms of what we actually have. So because the use was so high, what happened is that as part of the green data center policy, they had certain targets and performance criteria that any new data centers need to meet in order to be given a license to operate in the country. Now, what this led to was that several data centers actually left Singapore, right? They left Singapore to move to regional neighbors and so on, which basically had a lot lighter regulation and lower cost around energy and water. But several stayed as well for various reasons, right? So uh, basically, as it turns out, companies do care or clients do care about the carbon emissions of their compute. Some clients do care at least, right? So there's that. Also, you find that basically newer data centers that are being built are much more energy and water efficient than the older ones that were existing. So in fact, it was good to sort of clear out the old ones, so the new ones got built, and they could integrate some of these
renewable energy sources.
energy infrastructure. Also, the way they cool the data centers as well, right? Using sort of a district cooling methods and so on. They could build it in, they could integrate it as part of the new build, which you couldn't do in a retrofit context. So you ended up having data centers that were a lot more efficient than what we used to have. So sometimes when we talk about technology change and efficiency and so on, we often forget that infrastructure has a lifetime and ROI to it. And if we have new technologies emerging all the time, if the ROI hasn't been met on the previous infrastructure, which might be less sustainable, until the ROI is met, new infrastructure will not be built, encompassing some of those new sustainability technologies and so on. So we see this a lot in power plants. We see this a lot in waste to energy plants. We see it in data centers. Any sort of large infrastructure, we generally see this pattern repeating itself.
Yeah, that's a super interesting comment, and it really brings also the international perspective on those issues, because we in Europe tend to be enclosed in our own like geographical bubble from time to time, forgetting that places like Singapore have like the set of problems that basically give us some solutions to what we are currently facing. Actually, the author of the previous question, Aidan, he has given a very insightful comments in the chat that we are, however, caught in a vicious cycle where we can use AI to drive innovation and sustainability, but we do need to build and burn resources to build the AI capability to solve for further sustainability. Maybe, I don't know, Fred, can you maybe give a closing comment on that, and like what's do you think we're in a vicious circle? Do you think there's a way out to this?
I don't know. I don't know exactly if I see it as a vicious circle as such. Like in some fields maybe, but I think I think there's a lot, there's still a lot of inefficiencies out there that we can solve with traditional and like basically old school technologies. So we have a legacy in that way that we can solve and make it much more sustainable world. For that, maybe the economic incentives is not there because of some of the ROI or because of some regulation and so on. So there's still a lot we can do, not even taking innovation into account. Then with more new technologies, there's even more we can do, and I think we are still exploring also what we can do and how we can leverage it. And there, these things are getting much more efficient. So I just shared also an article from NVIDIA that has reduced their energy efficiency, improve the energy efficiency with 4,000 times. So that's a lot, right? So you will also see that a lot of the things we can do today, we'll be able to do much more efficient in just a year from now, basically, because how fast this is moving. So those things, what it needs, so that vicious circle, what it needs to kind of get that insight or make that algorithm, like make that prediction or something like that, what it requires of energy versus what you can save, is that return on investment is going to look better and better as our kind of underlying technology improves. Then of course there is part of this arms race so that's okay, but maybe just to say that's things that I think argues that we are not in a vicious circle that seems to be a very much of a closed loop thing. I think we are in many overlapping loops here, and that's why it's more complicated than just that. But then when you specifically look at the arms race of like the OpenAI and Anthropic and Meta and so on. Yes, of course, we are in a situation where it's a bit of what I alluded to in the beginning as kind of this going to the moon kind of period, where there's put a lot of resources into developing the best and improving and so on. But on the backside of that, you also see that a lot of smaller models are being developed as based on those, and they will for a lot of use cases be like great fits as well. So I think the kind of the innovative the arms race will end up becoming more of a commodity at the end, where the difference between the models and also as already I feel that the models, like the difference that comes is smaller and smaller and smaller, right? Because the kind of the big innovation has been done. It will continue, but I think that we will see that it will slow down. It's my thoughts. Of course, there will then come a lot of new areas, and that's the field that we're in. That then there will come multimodal, and there will come many other things that will continue keeping off that pressure of innovation. But I think we will see that many of the use cases can be solved with less energy. And then it's back to this business justification that if these large companies, if it becomes a commodity and there's not like that big of a gain of it, then they will not invest so much in basically burning a lot of of energy to get it. So I think that will stabilize it. Yeah, but we again back to the sustainable mindset. I think it's different. There will be different chapters of this, and we are a little bit in that like early chapter of it with Gen AI specifically, and I think we will continue to be in it. But the possibilities is also huge at the other side, and that's that constant trade-off that you need to make. Yeah.
Yeah, so not so much of a vicious circle, but more of a optimistic trade-off, I guess.
I think so. I hope.
I hope so too, for sure, for sure.
Mm.
Before I wrap up the technical panel and like give some recap of what we spoke today, do you guys have like any closing words, anything you wish that the participants can take out of this panel today? Anyone just jump in.
From my
Anything
side,
else?
it's been a pleasure. So thank you for the question, Aidan. Thank you for thanks you to the panel. It's been a pleasure. I hope it also gave some insight. So feel free also to reach out on LinkedIn and so on. I'm happy to connect.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine as well. And as you said, Fred, I think the question was really interesting and intriguing. We could have gone hours and hours, as Alireza said. So really happy to have been part of this panel and looking forward to future collaboration with all of you.
Thank you. I mean, on
Thank
my
you,
side,
guys.
great learning from all of you. So I definitely enjoyed the experience. And thank you for the question as well, Fred. Look forward to meeting you guys in future situations as well.
For sure, we'll have future opportunities to reconnect, and I'm very thankful, guys, to have had you today on this panel. We will share the information about your profiles and anything else, like the links you shared today, or anything else that you wish we can share with the participants as part of the follow-up. And this is, of course, an ongoing discussion, which is very, very hard to wrap up in just like 1 hour and everything. So for sure, we'll have future panels. We wanted to ask like a ton of more questions, but um, you know how it is when you're so interested in one topic. It's very hard um, to just keep it. You know what I mean. It's a lot of things to say, and it's so little time. Um, yeah, thank you, guys. Just like as a quick wrap up today, we did manage to discuss what is cultivating a sustainability mindset within AI, like with several key themes that's managed to emerge. So one part of it is that understanding AI has a tangible environmental impact, like in terms of mm, building awareness, and whether this is through like the energy required to train models or the resources that are needed to build and maintain data centers. Like this conversation emphasized that this isn't just a technical challenge, it requires strategic thinking, education, and leadership, which were topics that were continuously highlighted as a foundation for this shift. And one part is educating tech teams on what sustainability means. I think Vera said it's like in the context of AI development, and this could involve training staff on energy efficient computing, uh, internal guidelines as well, and focusing on those. Um, how to um, how to set clear priorities in terms of leadership, and I think Mohammed touched a little bit on that, but leadership isn't just about top-down directives. It's about embedding sustainability into company culture and making it everyone's responsibility. And um, Fred also said about turning sustainability into KPIs, key performance indicators, and incentivizing green practices, um, even if they don't offer immediate profits. Um, I think the overarching message is that balancing AI and innovation is not an easy feat, and it's not always like a trade-off. It's not always a vicious circle. It's not an easy feat at all, but it requires shared responsibilities also among tech companies and customers and policymakers. And there is not one simple answer into how building this mindset can come about, but maybe it's a combination of education and strong leadership with a focus on optimizing AI processes, and just like a positive maybe outlook on things that um, some things will require less energy in the future, and um, we still have a way of developing AI in an environmentally conscious manner, and it's up to us to choose it every day. So I think I think that's all from me, guys. Maybe Fali Reza, you have some closing words as well.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks, our panelists. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Yelin, for helping. Thanks, everyone who was interested attended. We will have more of this technical discussion panel. Hopefully we'll continue sustainability. And we have some of this about large language models, industrial application of large language models. So we'll send you all the information later through the email, and I hope we'll see you in the future webinars too. So I want to say goodbye and thank you everyone.